Hi, I'm David Betts, business coach working in Essex and Suffolk. And one of the questions I often get asked is, can you help me to create a business plan? And one of the first things I always explore is actually what do they mean and what's the purpose of the business plan? Because lots of people ask for a business plan, but they don't go on to adapt it for business planning. Now to me, these two things here are directly related. There's no point in trying to plan your business if you haven't got a business plan. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, what people mean when they say, can you help me create a business plan, means I want to go to a financial institute to ask them to borrow some money and they want me to have a business plan. So can you help me to create this, not for me in my business, but for me to use with other people so that it shows what I want to do with my business. And of course, the big win is what you do when you turn it into a business plan. But of course, the financial institutions understand this, and what they're looking for in a business plan is actually what the business planning is going to consist of. So let's take that to the next level. And if we look at my startup point for creating a plan, where I would start is the future, where you're looking the business to turn into. And if you're a startup business, this is probably at least 3 years. 5 years might be more likely, because you go much more than that, there'll be so many things will change in the first few years. You'll be a long way off the mark. So 3 to 5 years would be a starting point, I would suggest. And this to me is what I would call a business vision. The picture you have in your mind of where you're going to go with this new venture. So that's where we're heading. That's the future. But we need to come back to today. And where you are at the moment is in your mind, you have a concept for that business. The transition from concept to the vision is the plan which people are going to want to see. Because there's two facets of that: what you've got to do and what the financial implications of doing that is going to be. So let's look at those separately. And if we start off, what exactly are we looking for the long term? What are the products here? What are you going to sell? What buildings are you going to have? Where are you going to have location? What size team? They would all be sort of things that I'd be looking at the vision to where the business is going to be. Because this is probably going to give you a status, like you're going to be dominant in your part of the country or in this country or in Europe or wherever. So your starting points then is looking at the other end of the scale. And again, we need to look at the product, but what they're really going to want to know is what market testing you've done. And what does market testing actually mean? Well, let's imagine that you want to come up with a new service and it's not actually in the market. One of the testing things you could do is to place an advert for that service and see what response you get to it. You could go and ask people who you think might be interested, but be careful about friends and family, because they're always going to say what you want to hear rather than the reality. So we want some form of market testing, which, if you're going to use it for a financial organisation, needs to be seen as semi-independent. These are the facts. So how many, if it's an existing product, how many of your product is actually being sold? USP. What is your uniqueness, your selling proposition? Because the way you're going to penetrate the market is by being different to what's already there. You don't want to be a Me Too business. A Me Too business is just a business which is there to undercut the price of who already is in the market. And that's a recipe to go bust very quickly. So we start to develop in here. The other thing you're going to need is some form of infrastructure, whether it's trucks, lorries, buildings, whatever. So there's going to be physical requirements. And if you're manufacturing, you're obviously going to have to cover those costs as well. So this is basically what you're going to do, how you're going to establish it, where it's going. There will be an investment to make to achieve this. Okay? Now, we want to be £1 million business in 5 years. We're 0 here. So then we put in stepping stones in here. And if it was 5 years, we would want these at least initially once every year, and then we would plan in shorter periods when we're actually doing the planning. So these milestones, stepping stones if you like, will be the journey from now to then. So you may say, right, okay, well in year 1, we're going to be 200k. Okay? For you to sell 200k, you're going to have to do sales. And if you do marketing. And you're probably going to have cost of sales related. Which is financial speak for if you're going to sell a football, you have to buy or make the football, and that will incur your cost, but it also includes your selling costs as well. So then, this is on the cash side of things, that will have a cost. But it will also hopefully have an income from what you've actually sold here. So if you achieve an income, you'll have a profit, I hope, and a cost. Net result there is you hopefully will be cash positive, maybe not in the first year, but you will as you progress. You need to do this exercise for each year going forward. And you need to also look at what you're going to do. So if you're going to start off in your garden shed, undoubtedly by the time you get to £1 million business, you're going to be in industrial premises. So you have to plan that going through. So we end up with a plan which is your cash flow. And when we say cash flow, we're really talking about the profits, the net profit after everything else, because we want to see which way the direction is going. You're looking at the investment and the modification you can make in the businesses you develop. And there needs to be a contingency, a reasonably big contingency factor in there, so as you've actually shown that you've allowed for something to happen you don't expect. The more you think about it, the safer you're going to be with the investment. Now, the other thing when you approach somebody, if you want to borrow money, to use a jargon, they sort of the way they put it, they want you to have some skin in the game. So if you wanted to borrow £1 million, they're probably not going to expect you to have a sizable percentage of that, but they would want you to put risk on your own back for part of that. And that's probably, in most people's cases, the charge on their house. That shows that you're committed and you believe it's going to work, and you're going to go the extra mile as you go forward. Now, once you've done all this, this is basically the plan, but there is one other thing I would advise you to do. And I represent it like this because from years of experience, what I find is that the business owner has these great ideas to start with, and he comes up with a prediction on how things are going to grow. And my reaction to that is, that's brilliant, okay? So you're going to grow at this rate, you're going to get income or profit on this side over time, and you'll get this nice straight line. It won't ever be a straight line. It's more likely to do that. That's just typically the way things will grow. But what we end up with there is to say, right, okay, now I want you to go away and I want you to think about the minimum survivable income stroke profit that you can achieve and stay afloat. And there put our line in here. Okay? So if we drop below that line, we just shut up shop, walk away. There's no point in trying to go forward. We're losing money. We're not getting the market penetration. So the second thing to balance that, I say, is, right, now I want you to really dream big, and I want you to think about, you've done everything right, you've taken the market by storm. What's the best case scenario? And we draw that one in. What that leaves us with is an envelope in here. But we can go one step further than that, because what we can actually do is we can pick another colour. We could work out break even. So we know our costs, and this probably won't be a straight line because as you go forward you'll be making more investments, so it will become higher. But this is the profit we need to make to cover our costs. So most of this line here where it's minimum survival will be below that, I would suggest. And so now we know that to move forward we need to be in this area here. So let's just draw that in. Now, the next interesting thing is 1 to 2 years down the road, and I meet with my client again, discussing how he's going to plan, and it's got hard work. It's a lot of work involved, Dave. We're doing this, we're doing that, and we're not getting what we wanted, and it's taking so much longer than I thought. Great. Where are we on here? And you know what? If you've been doing your work along the line and you've projected things in a realistic way, and in particular if you've got somebody like me who's kind of giving you a steer in what was likely to work and what's not, invariably they'll draw a dot in there, be about there. And I'll bring out this copy of this graph that they've come up with, and I'll say, well, you know, by my reckoning you're exactly where you said you were going to be. What's the problem? And of course, when you put it into this context, they suddenly thought, yeah, you know what? We're doing pretty damn good. So I would suggest you do this chart as part of your startup. Firstly, because financial institutions will love the fact you've worked out what the real crunch point is. You've shown them what you've told them you're going to do. And then you say, you know what? If we blow the socks off the market, we're going to mint it. So it shows you there, and this is the reality check when you're a year or two down the road and you're thinking, what's this worth it? This will bring it back to focus. So I hope that helps you, and if you're trying to create a business plan, hopefully this will give you a good idea of the sort of things you should be looking at. It's an infinite number of things you can put in a business plan. Some people have produced business plans which are 50 pages long. I tend to be a little bit reticent about those sort of things because I tend to think if you give that many pages to somebody to look at, they're going to skim it. If you make it more focused, they're more likely to read it in depth. But it's whatever works for you. So, hope that works for you. I'm David Betts, business coach working in Essex and Suffolk. And if you're interested in this and other topics, join up with me on my various social media platforms. I'm going to keep you in touch with the latest ideas as they come along. Thanks a lot. Hope to catch up with you soon.